it seems to be a forever war, right? So what is going through the Prime Minister's mind? What is he doing here? Because to imagine that you can eradicate Hamas completely militarily, when by doing so you're killing innocent civilians that will then become the new recruits of whatever organization under whatever name.
Yes, and don't expect me to tell you, to supply you with justification to this devastating, no other word, devastating operation that starts by the time that we are talking. The Prime Minister wanted to continue this war, did anything possible to stop it, was not ready to stop it, even not for the sake of releasing the hostages. And here we are. Is it only because of domestic politics, because he knows that ending the war is ending his career? Or does he believe this war will bring him to his unachievable goals? I don't know what is in his mind between his two tears, but I'm sure that what is happening now is criminal, and the world will not be able to, or shouldn't be able to keep silent.
You're a very well-known critic of this government. You're a critic of the way that Israel has conducted this war in Gaza. And I just wonder whether the kind of images that we're seeing are coming out of Gaza. And of course, we as independent foreign journalists are not allowed in there. So we have to rely on local journalists, many of whom have been killed in the process of gathering news, many of whom are excellent and reliable enough for us to basically broadcast what they're saying. And yet, the Israeli public seems to be oblivious in large to what is going on there. Why is that?
First of all, and above all, because of the simple fact that the Israeli media recruited itself voluntarily not to show Gaza to the Israelis. The Israelis saw nothing. Any British citizen in the faraway village saw more than a Tel Avivian here in Israel. They don't show anything because they know that the Israelis don't want to see anything. And this, in my mind, is obviously a betrayal of our mission as journalists. But in any case, it creates a situation in which even today Israel is much more concerned about the Eurovision tonight rather than the beginning of another criminal war led by Israel.
And what's so astonishing, to me and also colleagues and friends who've been to Israel, as often as I've been there, is that you're on the beach in Tel Aviv, one of the most glorious beaches I know of any city. And literally down the road, half an hour drive down the road, is the beginning of the Gaza Strip. I mean, that is a terrifying thought, isn't it? That you have this, that you've got one lot of people who are living, peacefully on the whole. I know there are rockets flying over from Gaza, but the Iron Dome on the whole makes sure that you don't feel that threat. And thank God for the Iron Dome. But I also wonder whether that living out of sight and out of mind has prevented Israel from having to face a political solution and therefore still indulging in a military solution to all this.
I really can't compete with your assessments and your descriptions, but I'll try. By the time we are talking today, it's very hot in Tel Aviv. The beaches, by the time we are talking now, are crowded. And you are really right in analyzing the situation in which people are on the beach, and half an hour, 1 hour drive from here, this catastrophe is taking place. Israelis and Jews for decades used to criticize the Germans, not only the Nazis who committed the crimes, but those who sat at home and continued their normal life. We are facing something very similar, not that I compare between the Nazis and Israel, by all means not. But the indifference is the same indifference. And it's as criminal as there, because people are being killed right now for nothing, without any justification, any legitimization, and any goal, any reason.
And yet the Israeli government would say it's because of this military action that the hostages that have been released have actually been released. And it's more military reaction that will get the remaining hostages released. That's what they're saying. What's your response to that?
The only obstacle for releasing the hostages right now is this government, because the offer is very clear. Stop the war, which Israel should have been the first one to be interested in. Get out of Gaza, which Israel should be interested in as well and get all the hostages. This is on the table and Israel says no. And this belief that by military pressure we will get to the hostages was proven already wrong. I mean, it's even not it's not even a hypothetical question. Israel is putting enormous pressure over Gaza in the last 19 months and hardly got one hostage who was released because of the military pressure. All the hostages who were released due to deals, only due to deals.
And yet, I would say to Hamas, if they're listening, who knows, why not just release them all now? Just release all the hostages, occupy the moral high ground, release them all. You curry favor with Donald Trump, who is still Israel's most powerful friend out there. You will deprive Netanyahu of an argument. And then, he'll be exposed, because why does he then carry on with his military activities? If you release all the hostages today, some of this may end.
But Netanyahu by himself put the hostages as not his first priority. So why would they release them? Netanyahu said that the first priority, and the army says the same, is extermination of Hamas. So why would they release? That's the last card they have in their hands. If they release them today, I can assure you that this barbaric attack continues tomorrow. Netanyahu does not need excuses to continue this attack, and it will continue with the hostages or without them. It's not the first priority. He said so, not I say so.
And this is clearly also the calculation that Hamas is making, and they may well have been proved right, by precedent. Where do you, Gideon, see all this ending? I mean, you've talked quite a lot about the forever wars. Where do you see this ending? And at the end of the day, Israel can only thrive and have this dynamic economy as it had before October the 7th because it has made deals with its neighbors, because it's not constantly fighting the big wars. But this seems to be undermining its own position at the end of the day.
It will end in hell. It will end with a lot of suffer and bloodshed and destruction. It will end one day, because all wars end. I mean, it's not an endless war practically, because wars have this tendency of ending one day. But Israel will gain nothing and will pay a hell of a price, both in its domestic structure, because look, we are now really corrupting a whole generation of Israelis who believe that after the 7th of October, Israel has the right to do whatever it wants. There are no limits, not legal, not moral, nothing. And all the people of Gaza, none of them is innocent. This notion will corrupt a whole generation and maybe more of Israelis who believe that Israel has the right to do whatever it wants. And that's a damage for the long run, not only for the short run. And besides this, Israel will not gain anything. It is already by now a pariah state. The Americans might take also measures. They didn't until now, and so does the EU. Let's remember that the West is still hugging Israel in terms of action, not in terms of talkings, but in terms of action, Israel is still hugged by the West. And but there will be a price. There must be a price. And I don't know where are we aiming at. The main problem is that so many Israelis either support the policy or are indifferent and do nothing.
If the UK, the US, France and others recognized the Palestinian state, as many argue they should have done a long time ago, what difference would that make?
I'm afraid to say that it's a very late step, a very small step as well, because reality in the ground will not change. You really think that if the UK and even the US will recognize a Palestinian state, one settler will leave the occupied territory voluntarily because the United States declared it as a Palestinian state? The army will surrender? It will come only through real pressure on Israel. And declarations are not pressure anymore.
And finally, Gideon, we saw Donald Trump, give Israel the cold shoulder this week. He talked about Gaza becoming a freedom zone. He said this morning that, people were starving there and that America wants to help out. Do you think this is a fundamental shift in US policy? Because had it been another president saying these things, we would have all been saying, this is front page news, right? there's a shift here. But because it's Donald Trump, he may change his mind again tomorrow. What do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, some of his declaration in the last week were very positive. I must tell you that if it wouldn't be this operation now, which he doesn't stop, and he could stop in one phone call, if it's not this, I would even support and praise him for some things. Lifting sanctions over Syria gives hope for a new reality. Making peace with all the Arab world and appreciating the Arab world can lead to very positive things, even for Israel, maybe mainly for Israel. But once he is passive about what's going on in Gaza, and he is passive, this dooms him to be really, I don't know, what does he want? He wants a new Middle East, and he let Israel go for this terrible, terrible attack now. It's unforgivable.